The following Conscious Consumer Network recording of a live broadcast is available to purchase in high definition at ethymarket.com. Support free and independent media by becoming a CCN pledger. For €10 a month, you can have unlimited access to CCN high definition downloads at ethymarket.com. Ethymarket, the ethical marketplace for conscious consumers.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Desiree Rover from the Netherlands. And it was a beautiful day today, August 30. And it was a very busy day for me because I already gave a presentation on a health conference about water. But that's not what I'm going to talk about today, presumably. You already see here my beautiful, darling guest, Leuren Moret. Welcome, Leuren.
Thank you, Desiree, and thank you, Biggie, for masterfully putting on our show. Thank you so much.
Yes, well, I had trouble too, and he set me straight as well. So yes, 3 hoorays for Biggie.
Yes.
Technician, yes. Yes, so much is going on in the world, and one of the things that is bothering you, especially Leuren, in where you live, is electromagnetic frequencies, stalking, mind control, bothering, or whatever term you want to give it. But it's not nice. And the last time we had a private conversation, you told me something about that you found that lavender essential oil was helping you in the pain in your ears. So let's just dive into that. Maybe you can first explain what is happening in the area you live in, Berkeley, California.
Yes.
What's going on, and then go on what we can do against that.
Well, I think most people globally understand, especially in Europe and South America, Australia, New Zealand, they understand that there is a heavy chemtrails campaign going on where unmarked planes, very large planes, are flying through the skies, and they are releasing these trails of chemicals that also contain pathogens like staph and flu and pathogens that make your pets sick. I'm seeing a lot of people with swollen ankles in the San Francisco Bay Area. Many people in the kind of retired age, 60 and over, are suddenly walking with canes, not one cane, 2 canes. And this is astounding to see this. These are people, especially in Berkeley, who are very health conscious. So there's no good explanation for why this is happening. But it's really disabling people. And I have friends in African American communities and poor communities that I work with. And they are dropping dead like flies with heart trouble, with diabetes, with cancer, with chronic fatigue syndrome, with many illnesses that are not explainable. How does it suddenly start happening to everybody a year and a half after Homeland Security moves into the San Francisco Bay Area? Yeah. And so these programs are administering the chemtrails. They are increasing in episodic, very scheduled periods. And we are now for about a week in another new intense period of more chemtrails, heavier, different kinds. Some of them vaporize, the trail disappears in 7 seconds. So what is the solvent in that? It can't be good. And others are very persistent, and they drift over the San Francisco Bay Area and go east and cover other parts of the United States. So these chemtrails are also, they're putting up mirrors now with chemicals that reflect the EMF signals, and we can tell when the air masses over San Francisco Bay or Berkeley are loaded with electricity, because when you go in the bathroom and take your electric toothbrush out in the morning, if there's a high charge in the atmosphere, your electric toothbrush just about goes so fast it rubs the enamel off your teeth. That's what it feels like. And other times when they've drained the electricity out of the atmosphere, you'll go in and the battery's dead in your electric toothbrush, in your electric shaver, and it's even, they can drain the electricity in your computer in a second, in your cell phone in a second. So they are definitely manipulating with the electromagnetic environment of the areas where we live. And this is all over the world. I believe it's worse in the Commonwealth countries because it's the British American Permanent War Crimes Racketeering Syndicate that is the origin and running most of this. The U.S. military, of course, is the global cop, the bad cop. And also the British East India Company and the Dutch East India Company are also heavily involved. So the EMF attacks are coming from the atmosphere, from the chemtrails. There are also antennas set up now all over the cities with these new antennas that the Navy developed in 1972 and tested on a ship in San Diego. 78, sorry. And these new antennas are called flat array antennas. And I'm talking about this in detail because essential oils are also, in a way, antennas. Our bodies are antennas. Our chromosomes are antennas. And all the nanoparticles of the toxins, chemicals, metals, uranium, plutonium in our bodies are also antennas that transmit and receive. And this is why essential oils are so effective, because they have their own frequency, each particular essential oil, and it has a very powerful medicinal effect in terms of restoring the correct frequency to diseased parts of the biological system of humans and also plants and animals. We're all just piles of photons. We're electrical systems, and it's electricity that makes life possible on this earth and in humans. So that's what is happening now, and the military around the world, the HARP Global Antenna Network, the cell phone antennas and that network, and the cell phones now themselves are very weaponized with these flat array antennas, and they look like pizza boxes, and they can make them any size. I've seen them on 12-story buildings in Oakland and San Francisco and Berkeley. They are constructing new buildings on the Berkeley campus, and they're putting huge flat array antennas that cover the whole walls of buildings all around the perimeter of the campus. And this is basically an electromagnetic barbed wire fence, turning the campus into a prison camp, basically. And they also will use it on people they don't want coming onto the campus. So this is a denial, an admission denial, or that it's just used many, many ways. And now they can be that large to be on panels on big buildings. The Navy now in their new ships are covering almost the whole ship that's above water with these huge antennas. And they're very, very powerful. They're weapon strength antennas to take out rockets, to counteract missiles, all kinds of things. Now, they've also put them in cell phones. And it's very, very bad because now there are 6 or 8 or 9 or 10 in a single cell phone. And when you keep adding and adding, even though they're miniaturized, as they miniaturize them, they also make them more powerful. And so when you have a series of them, very tiny ones, in a cell phone, you can do horrendous things to people. You can hook them up to smart meters on the outside of anyone's house. You can get into their electronics, into their electrical system for all kinds of reasons. And it also affects all the biological systems in the building too. And they're also connected. They're on the street lights now, just huge ocean liners full of these special flat array street lights are going up in the Ukraine, in Serbia, in all over the United States, in Canada, in New Zealand and Australia. They're absolutely everywhere. And they are also lethal, as well as being listening posts for the police or other agencies that want access to do surveillance on citizens. So there's no privacy anymore. I have also experienced students on the Berkeley campus and off the campus are being trained, thousands of them, to use their cell phones to hack into other people's computers, into communications, to sabotage businesses where they're working, to sabotage employees who are targeted by a corporation so that it's your coworkers who are taking you down, or your own family members, including your children in your own home, can now use these devices as weapons to even kill people.
Whoa.
So let's go back to the essential oils. And now why these essential oils and other medicinal plants that we know from indigenous practices of indigenous people in their environment before the white men came, the age of exploration, people were much healthier then than they are now.
Oh, definitely, yes. Their food was healthy, and their air and water was healthy, not polluted. And
yes.
yeah, everything was as nature intends it to be.
And even the plants that they wove their baskets out of, that they made their clothing out of.
Yeah.
I work a lot with indigenous people, and they're saying, especially here in the western part of the United States, where the U.S. government did 1,300 nuclear bomb tests, we are the most nuclear bombed population in the world. And these indigenous people can no longer find healthy plants to do their weaving their baskets, making their traditional clothing, using for medicine, because the plants aren't healthy. And the health of the environment must be considered in everything a sane person does or a government does, because our health and the health of the biosphere cannot be any healthier than the health of the environment.
Yeah, it is all interwoven and interconnected.
Yes.
Yeah, and intercommunication, communicating. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Plants are doing great things. The show and the conference I was today, the health conference, they had the husks of a grain, a certain grain. They made it into little cylinders in cloth.
Uh-huh.
And they put the cylinders all next to each other in a bed, and then you had a mattress.
Ah, a healthy mattress.
A very healthy bed, yes. Yeah. And they had pillows, and they filled it with the same husks, and they put in extra lavender flowers, dried lavender flowers, for instance, or some herbs. And that was the pillow you could sleep on.
Yes, and what you're doing is introducing the an electromagnetic environment, which is created by these natural products in the pillows or the mattresses, that restores the correct frequencies to the functioning in your body. And it makes a difference. And in Japan, for instance, they're still very, very, very indigenous in many practices. And when I went to look for a drugstore, a friend of mine was in pain there on a trip. And I was trying to find a drugstore, you know, a pharmacy, and there weren't any, no Western ones at all.
Right.
And all they had were pharmacies, the Japanese natural pharmacies with traditional herbs, bark, root bark, seeds, leaves, whatever, that they have always traditionally used for good health because they work. And it's not coming from petroleum companies that the Rockefellers own or the Rothschilds own, and they want to sell Band-Aids, medicinal Band-Aids, which are the pharmaceuticals, which actually are very bad for your health. They don't cure it. They don't address the cause of disease. They are only treating you to relieve symptoms temporarily. And so the disease comes back, and as it wears down your immune system, new diseases come in additionally. And so what they have is repeat business that drains all the money out of families and communities and government health programs. So, I mean, they're just sucking us dry until we're dead.
Yes, and these new to nature substances, as some biochemists call these pharmaceutical products, they simply change the symptoms. Maybe they silence one, but then up comes another one, and it's not working at all.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, well, it's working for them, but it's
not for them, not for us.
And you see, there's another thing, is that as we evolved on indigenous diets, our body developed protector molecules. And so for certain substances that occur in nature that are harmful to our body. And so there's ionizing radiation in our environment coming from the sun and outer space. These are energy waves and even particles. And our bodies developed protection molecules that will neutralize those. Also, minerals have radioactive materials in them. It's naturally occurring, and our bodies have evolved over time to have protective molecules that also counteract that. But the problem is that the new chemicals flooding into the shops and pharmacies and into our bodies don't have a way to enzymes or whatever is needed to transfer those into compounds that we can utilize or excrete. And each cell has a little wastebasket in that cell where foreign materials or chemicals or whatever go if the body cannot utilize it, excrete it, or neutralize it. And oh, those little waste baskets are overrunning now and contaminating the cell. So what is happening is it's just so horrific, and you really can't keep up with all these new syndromes. Gulf War syndrome. Now, the newest one that I'm seeing in the medical journals is endocrine syndrome.
Oh, lovely.
Well, that's the damage to the thyroid, the pituitary, and the adrenal glands. That's the endocrine system. And guess what? The endocrine system is like the conductor in an orchestra, tells each part when to play, when not to play, what to play, how long to play. And so you're damaging the conductor, and it creates chaos in the orchestra. And that's our body.
Yeah, you can see that in people, and also in their behavior and the way they talk and think, and it goes in every way of expression that we have. You
and
see.
There's no way to get away from it, because it's coming down from the sky in the chemtrails, and landing in the ocean and in lakes and rivers and in reservoirs where we get our water. It's contaminating the groundwater. So you have to filter your water. And I mean, it's mandatory now. And the only thing that really removes the radiation effectively, the best filter, is the reverse osmosis filter. They're also adding fluoride and other compounds, chloramine, to the drinking water. And it's to deliberately slow down people's brains and subdue them. The Nazis used fluoride in the prison camps, the slave camps, to calm down the forced labor, and so that they could handle them, but also so that they would keep working.
Yeah, kept them docile and sterile.
Yes, docile and sterile, right. And that's what the whole total goal of the New World Order is now, to do to 95% of the world's population.
Yeah. Yeah, and we have some people that really are harmed already in Holland by this radiation.
Yes.
And there are people, I've known two of them who died recently.
Yes.
One took his own life because he couldn't cope with it anymore.
Yes.
I would have him on the telephone and we would speak, and then he would go suddenly, oh, like that, and then he was attacked again, and it went on and on and on and on the whole day through. Horrible, horrible, horrible.
Yep. Torture.
Yeah, absolute torture. And these people, I see them as the canaries in the coal mine.
Yes, they are.
There are
more and more of them every day.
Yeah. And these are people who have already a condition, for instance, Lyme disease or something like that, or an autoimmune disease or whatever. And then they are extra susceptible to these things. Yeah.
Oh, yes. And then it breaks you down psychologically, too. And what they're doing is culling society. They don't want lateral thinkers. These are people who can envision big projects, big ideas, and integrate them and make them work. 1,000 years ago, the Chinese eliminated them. I'm sorry, the Japanese did. And maybe 10 or 20 years ago, the Chinese started eliminating them. Well, the U.S. started in 1947 with the first nuclear bomb test. And the SAT scores for all students in the United States, SAT is the student aptitude test. In other words, what level of confidence have you been educated? How well are you educated? What do you retain, and so forth? What did you learn in school? Are you prepared for college? These are administered the last year in high school so that universities and colleges can determine whether to admit you or not. What is your level of achievement? And of course, they were written for male students, and they're not really very indicative of your true level of competence and thinking and so forth. It was a filter to get males into the university and college system and ignore the females. So it's just another it's just another fraud. And
the whole educational system is, in fact.
The whole educational system is, well, it's not an educational system. No. It's merely a training program to train people for jobs for the ruling elite. They don't want them educated.
Yeah, for jobs and for taxes.
Yes. So between 1947 and actually 1945 and 1963, there was so much brain damage in the United States that the SAT scores declined 12% in American students taking those SAT scores, and it never recovered because it's genetic and it's irreversible. And I was just talking to a professor at the University of California at Davis, and I was talking about this brain damage, and he said, I noticed over the last 10 years that the students in my class sort of got flaky. And he said, I just thought they were lazy, or they were distracted with other things, or they didn't care about the classes or education. And I said, no, they're brain damaged from all those uranium wars in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Somalia, in probably Libya. They probably used them in Libya, Panama, the Philippines, Korea, Japan. It's incredible that they're using these weapons, and now they're using them in the Ukraine and completely contaminating the area that's the war zone. And this poor province or counties or whatever, they just didn't want to live under an illegal coup government. And the coup government said, we're going to completely annihilate you with nuclear weapons. They said it in the Verkhovna Rada, in the Ukrainian parliament. They said it in the media. They said it in the newspapers. This is the president, the prime minister, and the former prime minister of the Ukraine. And it's exactly what happened. And it was John Kerry, Secretary of State of the United States, who had two neutron bombs transferred from the U.S. to the Ukraine in October of 2014, and they've already used them.
Oh, God.
So they used them in Yemen. The U.S. transferred them to Yemen. We're seeing these neutron bombs going off, in fact, in the Tianjin big explosion in China. Those were neutron bombs stored in a warehouse. And that is a new kind of nuclear warfare now. They're putting them in ship containers, the containers that are put on ships loaded with goods to be exported and imported. And those are now being turned into a new form of nuclear war. And that warehouse where the explosion began was owned by a Chinese company, but it was just a name change. And the real company is in North Carolina in the United States, and it's run by former Army military.
Whoa.
So here's the U.S. nuclear war all over the world, and whether the U.S. is officially involved, they're involved, and it's their neutron bombs.
So there really is no escape anymore.
There's no escape.
Yeah.
So the use of alternative forms of medicine and also your diet are becoming more and more critical to your survival. And what we're going to talk about today is essential that parents, that grandparents, that teachers, politicians, ordinary citizens, the media understand what's happening, because when they understand it's happening to them too,
Yeah.
sometimes changes begin to happen.
Yeah.
And they can't even stop themselves because the natural instinct to survive is stronger than the intellect.
Yeah.
So when your emotions take over, your intellect can't work. And so when you can get to people emotionally, they can't stop how they're feeling or how they respond. They're on automatic pilot, if you know
Yeah.
what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. I spoke at a conference today with some people who gave classes in classic homeopathy, and I started to talk about the chemtrailing and the nuclear damage from Fukushima, and well, other nuclear damage you were mentioning. I didn't even mention yet, of course, but they told me that it's possible to make homeopathic remedies to counteract radiation and counteract all sorts of stuff.
Yes, that's right. That's absolutely correct. And I'm sorry, are you through talking?
Well, I wanted to tell that a couple of years ago, I was in the house of Edward Bach of the Bach Remedies.
Mm-hmm.
And they were making one of the remedies by having a glass bowl with vital source water. And they had these little flowers of the chestnut in it. And it stood there for 3 hours on a little piece of grass in the sun. And then they took out the flowers, they put the water into a mother bottle and brought that to London, to Nelson's, which is a homeopathic company making homeopathic remedies. And then there, these mother loads, so to speak, of the chestnut flowers water will be made into these little tiny bottles where people can take drops from to bring them over a threshold that is within them in a certain emotion or whatever is holding them back from really living their own true self.
Mm-hmm.
And in this Nelson factory, there was a potency room, they call it.
Wow.
It was a huge room with layers and layers and layers of tiny carton boxes with all these vials, the glass vials in it, with all the substances in the world.
Oh my goodness.
And I knew, I was there, and I got very emotional because I thought, here I am in the middle of the healing possibilities of the whole world.
And it's all frequencies.
And it's all frequencies. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Because what you do is that you bring a frequency that your body can recognize and then can use against whatever is in your body that should not be there.
Well, it's the treatment of disease in Eastern European countries that came out of Russia, I believe. And they do healing with light therapy and with special instruments that transmit the correct frequency that an organ or a part of your body should be at to function properly.
Yeah.
And so they can transmit that frequency and lay it over the incorrect frequency. That's what causes disease, is incorrect frequency.
Yeah.
And they can restore it to the correct frequency. Well, that's what essential oils do also.
Yeah. And I have a very curious book. I can't show it because it's downstairs, but It's a book by a Russian scientist, and it's only numbers. It's sort of the zip code of every organ in our body. And if you put that number somewhere on your body to help heal that specific organ,
Mm-hmm.
it
works.
works. Yeah, it's
I've
amazing.
never heard of that.
No, it's amazing. I will give you the title and the
Okay.
ISBN of it. But we basically talking about the same thing all the time. Frequency.
Yes.
That's what it is.
And I've also noticed that we're under very severe attack in the house where we're living in Berkeley, because the university has made a special test case out of us. And it's because of the work we're doing, and that I've done all over the world for many years, warning about the danger of nuclear technologies. And so they are training students in houses all around us, and they have flat array antennas, and they also have antennas on their roofs. And I've watched them taking them apart and moving them and changing the function of the antenna, the frequencies and everything. And so you could even see them doing it. And they're even transmitting the internet Wi-Fi through the sewer system into houses. They're doing this so that they can attack people in their homes. It comes up through the drains in the kitchen and in the bathroom. It's through the electrical grid. That's what smart meters are about. And also it's through the cell phones. It's lots of ways. And they're attacking you that way. And so you're in a constant envelope of frequencies that make you feel sick or disable you or distract you so you can't think straight. But what I noticed is when we're in bed and we're not touching each other, you get severely attacked. But as soon as you're touching each other, you put your leg to your partner's leg, next to your partner's leg, or I'll put my arms on his back, and he goes to sleep immediately. Now, we have a cat that's being attacked all the time also, and you will not believe what happens to him when I get out the big sheet of bubble wrap. I have a bubble wrap blanket for him. He suddenly lays down on his little bed. He stretches his legs out in the front and in the back, and he's ready for mama to put that EMF blocker on him, and he goes to sleep, and he'll sleep for hours.
Oh, gosh.
So if you have animals that are being targeted, make a little cardboard box, wrap bubble wrap all around it, and you can also put Mylar on it as well. And your animal will very quickly understand that they can take refuge in that box and they're not attacked by the EMF. And he even goes into another room where I have a box covered with the bubble wrap. He discovered it himself. And when we're getting pounded with the EMF, he'll go out there into that other room and jump in that box, and he'll be there all day.
Oh, gosh.
So the animals understand also.
Yeah, apparently. Oh, gosh, what a horrible story. Yeah.
And this is known militarily in military terms as full spectrum dominance. Yeah. And then your phones start functioning, and your computer and anything with a digital trace can be changed. Yeah, so the people like the David Rockefellers and the Brzezinskis and all of those people, they do not use computers. They do it all on paper the way they've always done it.
Yeah.
So the guys handing us all these candy-coated weapons to destroy our own lives, they don't use them. So it's they can't eat their own pudding. That tells you it's poison.
Yeah, it sounds like Monsanto that
Yes,
gives not GMOs in its own cafeteria for its own personnel.
that's right.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing. But these essential oils, you told me that you put them on a Q-tip and put it in your ears because it was very painful when you were targeted.
Well, I discovered it. I put some drops of lavender natural essential oil in a spray bottle of water, and it was to just freshen the room. I love lavender.
Yeah.
And so I was spraying it around in the room, and I noticed that suddenly the EMF stopped. It was coming
Oh,
through the window. And I said, uh, I wonder what that is. And I also noticed if it's raining outside, it stops too. It doesn't go through the rain. And these are very weak frequencies, but they interact with the human frequencies and they just devastate you. And so, so one day, just a couple weeks ago, and we're in August 30th, 2015 today. I was just so nonplussed, and they make you feel really grumpy. They have mood controls, or they
oh,
can initiate fighting between people, and all of a sudden they turn it off and everybody turns around and walks away totally normal. Oh, the gang stalkers, a lot of the gang stalkers are being controlled with mind control frequencies. And so I said, gee, one day I was just desperate, not very long ago. And I said, I wonder if the lavender oil will work in the canals of my ears, because that's what they're targeting. They're transmitting from different directions, and where they intersect in your brain, they create artificially the molecules that the brain naturally produces to make different moods in your brain and in your emotions. And so I got a Q-tip out and I put one drop of essential lavender oil on this Q-tip, and I just made sure the inside of the ear was coated and the outside too on both ears. And for 3 hours, I had complete relief.
oh, wow.
And that's how powerful essential oils are.
Yeah.
So you can use them to also fight the EMF attacks.
Yeah. I looked up in the internet and I saw some people talking about specifically radiation and oils, essential oils. And one side spoke about cedarwood, cedar leaf tuja,
Uh-huh.
celery seed, sweet orange, and Dalmatian sage.
Ah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and one also talked about take a hot bath with 30 drops of fennel.
Uh-huh.
That's also the idea. And I
Oh,
told you, yeah,
all of these work. They do work.
yeah, absolutely. And I told you that I always make my own body oils with
Yeah.
sesame oil, for instance, which is a warming oil that is for my condition, that my constitution. That's a good oil. And then I add different essential oils, lavender and ylang ylang, and cedar oil, for instance, to have different tones. You have to compose a little piece of music with bass tones and sopranos and everything in between. And that I use on my skin after showers, and that's lovely. That is so good to do. But if you have lavender in that, it will protect you apparently also from the radiation of or the electromagnetic attacks.
Lavender oil, is it lavender oil? What's the oil for your, oh yes, lavender oil. If you mix it with another oil, you dilute it with another oil. You just put a couple drops in a small bottle of another oil. Like a light oil. You can use almond oil or walnut oil or
yeah.
I use olive oil too, but you can use a light oil. And if you put that on an area where you've had damage to your skin, it can heal it without scarring.
I know.
Without
I have a beautiful story about that. My eldest son was about 16 years old, and he had a cross motor. And he had done some work on it, and he was trying it out in front of the house on the street. But it was summer, and he had only his swimming trunks on. And then the brakes jammed. And then he went with his naked body 20 meters over the street. And he came in looking like a steak tartare with
like
grass,
what?
sand, and stones, and God knows what else. It was awful. And nobody was allowed near him. And the only thing that I did was I emptied a lavender essential oil bottle on his steak tartare part. And never got he an infection, and you really have to look for the scars.
Yeah.
And my daughter the other day, she burned her hand. She took off a pan with boiled eggs, and she wanted to put it on in the sink under the cold water. And it fell over her hand, the boiling water. And I gave her lavender oil. And now it's been 2 weeks. I gave her first the lavender oil, and then I gave her the bochum salve. That is a with a lot of herbs in it, the salve. Mm-hmm. And you can put that salve when the burn is closed, skin is closed, and it will help heal the burn, but the bandages won't stick to the wounds. So that is really perfect. And they give presentations with people who stick out their arm, have boiled water put on it, and then put on the salve.
Oh no!
How sure they are that it's working. So, but I first started with her with the lavender oil, and then the salve. But then some of the blisters opened, and then you can use the salve. So you can use the lavender on that. And now she has this beautiful brown suntanned arm with baby skin, pink.
That's great.
Spots on it. It's beautiful, but it's healing beautifully and no scarring.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now, herbs that are used in cuisine and cooking, they are also very, very, very medicinal, and they also have essential oils that and trace elements that are extremely biologically important for normal function. And in Provence, in France, they have a special herb called Herbe de Provence. And it's lavender leaves and thyme and
rosemary.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's there are different recipes for it. Lemon peel and dried orange peel. It just depends.
Yeah.
Or whether you're doing fish or meat or vegetables. And those are the wild herbs that naturally grow in that region of France. And so I'm sure that the Herbe de Provence mixture evolved from what was an indigenous medicine.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And another one is curry.
Yeah.
And when I make an Indian curry and I eat that, I'm not hungry until the next day because it is made of the curry powder is ground seeds, bark, root bark, all kinds of leaves, of even blossoms, seed pods. And those are very, very loaded with nutritious elements and trace elements and enzymes and so forth, because the plant that produces those wants the seeds to survive. And so the seeds need to have exactly the right elements. And and nutrients in order to germinate and then properly grow into a small plant. And they curry is very, very nutritious, and it's better if you grind your own curry mixture and make your own powder, because then they're all fresh also. So I'm on a huge adventure with herbs, and I even make my own liqueurs. I don't drink, but I like to have a liqueur once in a while. And I bought a how to make your own liqueur book that was from an Eastern country for $1 at a garage sale. And you can't believe how much better they taste than the liqueurs that you buy in the liquor store.
Of course, yeah.
They're wonderful. And I even went onto the internet and I found the original recipe for Cointreau, for Curacao. I made the most delicious apricot liqueur. Oh my God, they're wonderful, and they're really nice gifts, and people really appreciate them too. But I started making them because I make a lot of pastries, and they're good in a teaspoon or a tablespoon here and there. Gives them flavor. But oh my goodness, if you want to capture the essence of a lovely fruit during the right season, or nuts or whatever, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I once did that with rum and fresh fruits.
Oh
gosh.
Yeah.
That was amazing. Yeah.
So another way to use to get lemon oil into your body is to make the Tunisian lemon. And in Tunisia and North Africa, they take lemons and they cut them in quarters, or they slice them in the rounds like a lemon slice. And they pack them in salt in a jar, and then they fill it up with lemon juice. And you let it sit for about a month. You can also put, allspice and cloves and things like that in it if you want to flavor it. But I like them just plain, just fine. And anything you cook, lamb stew, Moroccan lamb stew, soup, bake a chicken, anything that you bake or cook, on the stove, you just add a few of those slices. You wash all the salt off, and then you chop it up, or you just put it whole into the baking dish or cooking pot. And it gives the most divine flavor to the dish, and that's the essential oil, basically.
Yes, in the skin. Yeah, I know.
In the skin, yes.
Yeah,
and it doesn't taste the same if it's fresh. Fresh lemons do not taste the same as salted lemons. So there's some kind of a chemical change that enhances the flavor of the lemon when you store it in salt for a while.
But also, this means that you are giving your body substances that it has known since eons.
These
are the substances that the body can work with. But
this is lemon essential oil.
Oh yeah,
And we were talking about lavender essential lavender essential oil, and this will last a couple of years.
Oh yeah.
It's you just need one drop. This is, now we were talking about the mixtures. This one is called Thieves, Thieves, like people who steal things. And it has a little spray nozzle on the top. And this is superb for preventing getting diseases. And so you aren't supposed to take it internally, but you can do one squirt on your toothbrush, put toothpaste on, and every time we go out and there are chemtrails in the sky, we do this before we leave the house. and
Oh, yeah.
you'll never catch the flu, the staph, or whatever is in the chemtrails with this.
And it's a compound of different.
It's a mixture, yes.
Yeah.
And the rosemary. When you want your hair to be beautiful and shiny, I used to go out and pick branches of rosemary, and then I'd simmer it for an hour on the stove. 20 minutes is long enough. And you can see the essential oil floating to the top of the pan. And I would just take that water and let it cool. Or I'd put it in a jug and pour a little bit of vinegar in, because the vinegar removes the soap from your hair, but it preserves the rinse. And you rinse your hair with it. And people used to stop me in the street and say, "Your hair is beautiful. It's so shiny." And that's the essential oil from the rosemary. I mix, sometimes I throw lavender in too. Lavender and rosemary is a really nice combination.
Yeah.
And it smells so good when you go to bed at night on the pillow and you smell it.
Oh, yeah.
Just go right to sleep.
I know exactly what you mean.
It's wonderful.
It's heaven. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I have this little box of toiletries. It's meant for that, but it's full of little bottles that you show with, I think, 30 different kinds of essential oils.
Yes.
And I only have to open the zipper to really, what's
happening? This is thyme. The herb thyme. What do you use thyme for?
One of the things I use it for is when I want to be sure that I don't have bed bugs. So when I go to a hotel, I put some on a tissue and I go on the mattress like that. And I had that once, not me, but somebody else. We were at the University of Sheffield and we were staying there in the dorm. Yes. And a colleague of mine, he woke up and he was with red dots from top of his head to the end of his toes.
Oh my gosh.
God knows what was in there. But I know for a fact that the bed bug is the one that spreads smallpox.
Oh.
And now in the US, bed bugs are on the rise again. So, and I heard in a different place, I found an article that they were making new smallpox vaccines. And I thought, hey, what's this about?
Well, that's really interesting because I live near the Berkeley campus, and I went into the laundromat one night, and there was an undercover cop who goes around and he annoys people. That's his job, is to annoy people. The university targets people, and they have people like him go and harass them. And so I'm in the laundromat, and he comes up to me and he said, "Oh, all these dryers have bed bugs in them. They're from the homeless people living down there in People's Park." And I knew he was full of baloney because bed bugs aren't going to survive a hot dryer, right?
No.
So I said, okay, what he's doing is foreshadowing him. The bed bug theme is going to show up, a bed bug problem, very soon.
Yeah.
Just announcing it. It's called conditioning.
Yes.
So about a week later, I had a Korean roommate, and she woke me up in the middle of the night screaming and crying. She said, look, there are bed bugs in my bed. And she had all this red rash across her stomach. And she didn't have bed bugs, and I didn't have bed bugs. So I then thought of that undercover cop, and I said, oh, that's what that was about. So then next morning, I got out my microscope, and I also printed out the life cycle of the bed bug. And so that we knew what each part of the life cycle would look like in case we found some. And we spent about 5 hours in her bedroom looking at every piece of dust and everything on the floor, in her bed, on her pillow, on her clothes, everywhere. And there was not one piece of evidence that it was bed bugs. So then I started talking to Mohican Native people in Canada, on the Canada-US border up there where the Great Lakes are. And they said, oh, we have a bed bug epidemic now, and we have to sleep with the 4 legs of our beds, each in a bucket of water, to prevent bed bugs from getting up in the bed. Well, then I started reading about bed bug epidemics all over the United States, and I said, this is a frequency. Just like Morgellons disease is a frequency disease. And even one of the students on the Berkeley campus said, oh yeah, we make Morgellons disease on the campus. It's just a frequency. And he started telling me all about it. You know how grad students are. They want to tell you about these miracles they're discovering and for humanity and this and that. So some of these things, the phenomena that are happening that are really annoying to people, are also transmitted, but the essential oils can be used to counteract those transmissions.
Yeah.
And now this is grapefruit essential oil.
Oh, yeah, lovely.
I mix this with another oil, a light oil, to put on basically electrical burns on the ankles of Leuren's. And what I discovered was that he had very bad ulcers, very, very big, raw, open patches on the inside of his ankles. And then I started photographing them every day to document what was happening. And they started last October, October 2013, when we started getting really attacked. And it's the same month that Janet Napolitano, the former Secretary of Homeland Security, which is called the Jesuit Gestapo, she arrived to become the president of the University of California. So she left Obama's administration to come and become president of the nuclear weapons labs, which are managed by, and the University of California, who manage the nuclear weapons labs. So that's when his problems started, and we couldn't get his ankles to heal.
They were a year in, and they'd actually started the program.
Yeah, so then I was walking around him one day, photographing, and I said, wait a minute, the back of his feet, where around the back of where his ankle would be, had no damage at all. It was completely healthy skin. And I said, then this is directed energy frequencies that are coming down the sidewalks when we're out walking in neighborhoods and around the city. And this is the pattern of the beam. It's not hitting the back of his ankles. It's just the front and the sides. And the worst damage is on the inside of the ankles. And that's from the smart meters on houses that we're walking past. So they're hitting us from cars, from the smart meters on houses, and they're beaming these very dangerous frequencies that cause injuries to your skin and your body down the sidewalks. And then they're also beaming on the streets so that they're tracking the cars coming and going in and out of Berkeley. And all the police departments have them.
Oh, gosh.
And so then I realized when I saw all these people in retirement age walking with canes suddenly, I said, what's wrong with them? A couple of months ago, they were just walking just fine and riding their bicycles into their 90s. And then Laurence and I were noticing this, and swollen ankles, but especially the older people retirement age, and he said, oh yeah, they want to get rid of them because they're tapping money in their retirement funds, and the bankers want to steal all that, the insurance companies and the funding, the retirement funding agencies, and they want to get them off of government Medicare and government retired programs. And also they're not in Obama's health care, his new health care scam, which is going to bankrupt families, and it's mandatory. You have no choice. But people who are retired have government medical benefits, and so they don't need it, and they're exempt from it. So now we see that segment of the American population, which is the healthiest one, because they were born before or when bomb testing was minimal, so they were not exposed in utero. But the later people born were very, very damaged health-wise. And what happens to an embryo or a developing fetus in the womb, whatever they're exposed to, determines their health history for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
And so this grapefruit mixed up in oil actually is very, very good for healing wounds. Lavender oil is also good, but it also helps to prevent scarring. Now, how would you think that the grapefruit skin or the lemon skin that we throw away, how would you ever think that that could be so healing? We shouldn't throw it away. And what you can do is get a very small, very fine zester that you can zest just the oil glands off of the surface of the skin. It doesn't take the white pith, which is bitter and has other chemicals in it. And you take that zest and you take it fresh and put it in oil and leave it there for a couple of weeks. And you have the equivalent of essential oil in an oil base that you can use if you don't have essential oil.
Yeah. Yeah, you can do a lot of things like that yourself, and it's a voyage of discovery doing that, and you will learn so much. And I think with the times that are coming when nothing is there, we need this sort of old knowledge again.
Well, it works the best. It just works. It works for children. It works for babies. It works for, and it's not internal. It's it doesn't damage you. It's just healthy. It's what needs to be there. Your body is craving it. Now, this is peppermint oil. And when babies are colicky or gassy, you just put a tiny drop of peppermint oil in water or in a bottle, and they suddenly become very calm and they go to sleep. Peppermint oil is very, very good, or peppermint tea. You can make it out of the dried or fresh leaves. It's used all over the Middle East. It's a main part of their diet. And the peppermint or spearmint will get rid of all the gas. You know how uncomfortable you are if you haven't eaten a lot of meat in your diet and you go out and have a big steak or a leg of lamb or something like that. And you go home, it's too rich for you, actually, if you're not used to it. And your stomach is uncomfortable all night long. You have indigestion. Peppermint is the super, super duper digestion aid. And you could take these essential oils when you travel. You just put them in a little bag that contains them if they leak. And you have your whole hospital with you, right, in a little bag, in little bottles. It's just the greatest stuff.
Yes, it's amazing. Yeah, I always have lavender with me. Always.
Yes. This is rosemary oil.
Oh yeah,
the rosemary. What do you use rosemary essential oil for?
I basically use it for getting an extra accent in when I make a blend of oils in a body oil or something. I'm not using it specifically, and you can use it in the kitchen. Just put a drop in your or so. That's also possible. Yeah.
Now, I wanted to talk about some of the books and the early examinations or research on by modern academics on the medicinal plants that Native Americans used. And I can't read the notes. So can you read the title of the books of Dr. Weston Price?
Yes, that is Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. And he has an indigenous diabetes cure that is Devil's Club root bark.
Right.
Comes from British Columbia.
That's right. That's correct. And he was a dentist in the 1930s who closed his practice, and he traveled around the world with his wife for at least 10 years. And he was studying indigenous people all over the world on their traditional diets, and then the ones comparing them to the ones who had contact with Western food and society. And what he discovered is that as soon as they got, he said when he met indigenous people living on their traditional food, the children had no disease. He said they were healthier than Westerners. And he said the adults had almost no disease. And there was no tooth decay. Now, tooth decay is very, very important because it's a low-grade infection in your head, which is very dangerous because the brain is there. And anytime you get an infection anywhere in your head, you should immediately go and have it attended to because it can get into your brain. Now, when he did more studying, he actually wrote a book that she just mentioned, and he said that the children of indigenous people in contact with Western foods, particularly flour, sugar, and processed oils, had terrible cavities in their teeth. They also had malnutrition because their mothers had been eating Western food, which was not nutritionally sound when they were carrying these babies. And the teeth and the jaw form in utero. So just as I said, what happens to that baby in utero affects its health the rest of its life, or determines its health history. And in the tribes that were in contact with Western food, you could see even in one family, he had pictures of the children that were born before the mothers started eating Western food, and they had full dental bridges. I've never seen an indigenous person who needed braces. They didn't, because their jaws properly developed from proper nutrition. And so the bridge doesn't grow fully. The teeth are the same size as the mother and the father's, but what holds them in the mouth is smaller because it's nutritionally starved during development. So I don't. Oh, something's going on with my computer. Anyway,
yes, I'm showing the book.
Okay. Yes, nutrition and physical degeneration. Yeah. So with the children born after the mother came into contact with Western foods, they had crooked teeth, they had teeth full of decay, and you've seen poor people and also indigenous people with no teeth. They lose their teeth also, or they'll just have a few teeth. That's all from diet, unless they're on severe drug cases. Certain drugs make the teeth fall out. and the children also had teeth erupting from the middle of the roof of the mouth. There are never any teeth supposed to be there. And it takes 5 generations after returning to the native diet for the bridge to come back to its natural full state and for the teeth to fit properly in it. So 1 generation of bad food affects the whole next 5 generations if you return to your traditional diet. These are very long-ranging, long-term damage, and of course, eventually it becomes genetic.
Yes, Weston Price also did research to root canals. And I had an interview many years ago on my radio program with Hal Huggins. And Hal Huggins got the research that Weston Price did on what root canals mean to the body in modern dentistry. And he said it took me 10 years to improve on his research, and that is only because DNA technology was not available when Weston Price was working what he was doing. Yeah, it's amazing. It's an amazing book. And you also have Francis Pottinger, who did the experiment with the cats, showing that when you feed cats a diet that is perfect for them, you will have strong cats and strong kittens. And then he had 5 groups, and every group got less quality food. And oh gosh, I think that the third group after the 2nd generation didn't even get kittens anymore.
Yeah.
And when you extrapolate that to humans right now with the crap that they sell in supermarkets and say it's food, we are in the Pottinger experiment. Yeah. Absolutely.
I shop at a very, very good grocery store in Berkeley. It's called Berkeley Bowl, and it was started by Japanese Americans, a family. And it's incredible to go there, and everybody in Berkeley practically who is aware of health and good diet shops there. I mean, if they closed that store, there'd be riots all over Berkeley until they opened it again. What they did was they opened another one. So the mother and one of her sons run that, and the father runs the original one. But people from all over the world come to Berkeley. It's the most international campus, and it's the jewel of the crown of the University of California, the best campus. And so these people are from all over the world, and the almost half of the store is fresh fruit and vegetables. And they have, you can buy bergamot oranges there. They only grow in 2 places in the world. They're the basis for all of the most expensive perfumes. And also it is what flavors Earl Grey tea. It's actually an orange. And it was developed in Italy, perhaps during the Etruscan period or the Roman period, down at the very southern part in 1 village only. And that is the village of the Ndrangheta, which is the global mafia now that has been involved in pedophile rings and hunting human teenagers. The King of Belgium and the Queen of the Netherlands and some of the royals are all involved in that. Dick Cheney loves to hunt teenagers, naked teenagers. They put them on drugs. They let them loose in the woods, and these idiots have guns, and they hunt them down and shoot them and kill them. And then they cut the penises off of the boys. And Queen Beatrice, in one of her palace estates, all these penises are tacked onto a board on the wall as trophies. Yes, this is how weird these people are.
Yeah.
We sure don't need kings and queens, I can assure you, or princes and princesses either. Come
No.
on, we're grown-ups and we need control of our own governments, and not idiots like that leading the fashion trends and behavior trends and thievery trends, because they're all involved in major drug trafficking
Oh, yeah.
and human trafficking.
Yeah, also.
So, anyway, going back to what was I talking about?
We were talking about
The bergamot, yes.
Yeah.
And so I went to Berkeley Bowl one day. There are only two places where you can get bergamot oranges in that village in Italy, and they're also grown in Turkey. And my goodness, I was walking down the citrus section, and there were bergamot oranges. So I started buying them and making you can make the oil, essential oil from them, or they're good in baking, they're good in chocolate, they're great in coffee as flavorings. So I would just zest them and freeze the zest. And anytime I wanted Earl Grey tea with fresh bergamot, I would go in the freezer and take a pinch out and put it in the teapot. It is so good.
Yeah,
It's not good to eat the fruit, but the skin is just heaven. And so that's the bergamot story. But there are oh, I know. I wanted to talk about the diabetes cure from British Columbia.
Yeah.
And that was in Dr. Weston Price's book. And he went to British Columbia and he was talking to people in the hospital. And one of the doctors told him that I'm sure it was an Indigenous person, came into the hospital with some ailment, and they were treating him as a patient. And after 3 days, he got diabetes. And so the doctor was really puzzled, and he said he couldn't get diabetes in 3 days in the hospital. And he said to the patient, "You have diabetes. What were you taking that made the symptoms disappear?" He said, "Oh, I just drink a tea every morning." And the doctor said, "What's the tea made out of?" He said, "Oh, it's made out of a plant, the root bark off of a plant, a shrub that grows in the forest." And, well, what's the name of it? And the Indigenous person said, "Well, it's called Devil's Club." And I was at a native gathering in Nevada about maybe 7 years ago. And there was a medicine woman with her cedar bark traditional hat on and her woven cape with the native signs and symbols on it. And I went up to her because she was a medicine woman. And I said, "Do you know about Devil's Club because you're from British Columbia? And do you know how to cure diabetes with it?" She said, "Of course I know how to do that. I can even cure diabetes with it." And I said, "Give me your card."
Yeah, please.
And so now with people who have diabetes, I give them her phone number and her contact information, and she has helped them with the diabetes. And actually, Devil's Club grows in the woods all up and down the coast of North America.
Okay. Would we have that in Europe as well?
I think that you can order it through medicinal herb suppliers.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't think it's a rare plant at all.
No.
But my brother went to Mexico and he was surfing down there. He loved surfing, and he was in Baja, Mexico. And he said, "Leuren, I stepped on a stingray when I was in the water at the ocean." And he said, "I knew I was going to get a horrible reaction on my foot and infection. And you can even lose your foot, from certain infections." So he flagged down a taxi driver and he said, take me to a doctor. I just got stung by a stingray. He said, we drove in circles for an hour before he found a doctor to take me. And my brother went in and sat down and said, I got stung by a stingray. Do you have any kind of medicine to treat it with? I want to treat it right now before it turns into a big infection. And it's also really painful. The doctor said, well, any place in the world, there is a plant 20 feet from wherever you injure yourself that will cure that injury. Now get back in the taxi and go back to the beach where you were. And this is the plant you look for. Pick some leaves and put a poultice on your foot.
Yeah.
So he gave $50 to the taxi driver for driving him in circles for an hour, only to be sent back to the beach where he'd come out of the water. There was the plant. He said, I did what the doctor told me, and it was well the next morning.
Amazing. Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
So you see, that is the medicinal world that we should be adventuring in.
Yeah.
It's free. It's very, 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 very effective, and it's non-invasive.
Yeah.
Western medicine wants to cut you open and cut you apart and usually
Take
steal
stuff out.
out of your insides, and that makes the rest of your life miserable. And you don't need that. All you need is the right plant or the right part of the plant, and you can just about cure any illness. And the cannabis oil now is being used very widely to cure cancer.
Yeah, I know. There's lots of stories by people who have been using it and were back to health to their own surprise also.
Well, did you know that cannabis was a major part of the Japanese religion? And they make their clothing out of it still to this day. It has frequency aspects to it that keep you in good health. It's part of the health regimen of people in Japan. And when World War II was over and the American General MacArthur invaded and took over Japan, he outlawed hemp completely from Japan.
In the 1700s, farmers in Europe were obliged to plant hemp on at least 20% of their land.
Wow.
Because they made everything out of hemp.
Yes.
They made clothes, sails,
rope,
and that sort of stuff. Everything. Yes. And there is you can find hemp clothing on the internet these days. Yeah.
Oh, we can find it in Berkeley, lots of places, because people know about it here.
Yeah. And yes, I used to work with a sort of shaman in Amsterdam who had made in a ritual Shiva Bang. And Shiva Bang was this little green ball. It was the leaves of the cannabis plant with some herbs and something around it to seal it off, egg white or something. And it was used by people who had pain, like cancer or AIDS patients. And you had to crumble part of that little ball into yogurt and then eat it. And that was a very good pain medicine. But also what you could do with
good pain medicine. Yes.
Yeah. And what you could do also with it is that if you want to have a session in which you want to find out about a certain emotion that is bothering you, or you want to do some introspective journey.
Oh, yes, meditating. Yes.
Yeah. Then you could use a bit of the Shiva Bang and you would be very concentrated and mellow on that stuff. And you could do that session therapeutically with another person then came the opium law in Holland, and it was. And now they speak about medicinal cannabis. And it is crazy, of course, because cannabis is cannabis. It's not medicinal or it's not it's owned by somebody. It's a natural thing.
It's a natural thing, yes.
They let these patients smoke the stuff, which is crazy because you need to eat it.
Yes. And what I was going to mention is that we're attacked with frequencies all the time. And people all over the United States are complaining about backaches, chronic, really painful backaches. Well, it didn't take me very long, because I never have backaches, to figure out that the people living overhead who are grad students getting their PhDs for experimenting with EMF frequencies on us and torturing us all night and all day long, that I had to do something about this backache. It's so debilitating. You can't do anything. So I started making marijuana tea. And you just take a little bit of the bud, or you can use the stems. They're even more powerful. And I put them in a coffee grinder with dried mint tea and other herbal teas, and grind it into a powder. And I keep it in a little jar. And when you're going to go to bed at night, you just make you take a pan and fill it with water, and you put about a quarter to a third of a teaspoon of this powder into the water, about 3 cups of water. And you let it simmer, you start it boiling, and then you turn it down to simmer for at least 20 minutes, 10 or 20 minutes. And then you drink that before you go to bed. And they're using all these frequencies to wake people up. You can't sleep more than 3 hours. They wake you up and you're awake for 2 hours, and then they stop and you go back to sleep. But it disrupts all your
patterns, yeah.
All your patterns, yeah. So that just puts you to sleep like a baby, and you wake up in the morning feeling really rested and relaxed. And what these frequencies do is they create tension in your body and your muscles, and that restricts the blood flow through the capillaries. And that's what causes pain. It's oxygen and nutrient deprivation of the tissues in your body. And so when I have a backache, and a lot of times they do it at certain times of day, or when I'm ready to do an interview or something, I drink the tea and I take 3 ibuprofens, and in about 10 minutes, the backache is completely gone. And it's just, you can even put it in your pet's water. When they're attacking the pet, they'll start clawing and biting you. That's frequencies, because if your cat never did that for 3 years before, then it's got to be frequencies, and you're feeling rotten too. They target the animals. So if you put some in their drinking water, it helps them relax. Relaxing the ibuprofen and the pot tea open up the capillaries, and the blood rushes in and oxygenates the muscles, and that's why the pain disappears. That's also why when you have pain and you massage the muscles, it gets the blood flowing again, and the pain will go away.
Yeah. Well, I don't want the ibuprofen.
Oh, yes, I know.
I have a little hut. I call it my little box, and that is it's not about the box, but it's about the radiators that are in there, and that out of these radiators comes far infrared light.
Yes.
And what that does, it vibrates all your cells, and everything that's in the cells that should not be there, like heavy metals or whatever. It goes out, and then you start to sweat profusely, and that's how the stuff leaves your body. And it sets the lymph stream on, and your blood stream goes, and I feel my lungs open when as soon as I'm in there, and I feel it opening up. And what I do while I'm sitting in there, because I always want to do 2 or 3 things at the same time, I do a little jin shin, what's it called? Jin shin shui, or something like that. Meaning holding your fingers like that, one by one, and every finger stands for something. This is worries, and this is, I don't know, and this is anger. And well, anyway, you treat your whole emotional system by holding the fingers of both hands. Yeah, and it's amazing what you can do.
And it works, of course.
And it works, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But you see, Asians have done that for thousands and thousands, 40,000, 80,000 years.
Yeah.
And they understand, even Western physicists could not understand physics until nuclear physics, until they went to the Asia. And Niels Bohr, the famous Danish physicist, a theoretical and experimental physicist, it was at the time when the scientists, the physicists, were trying to understand what the atom actually looked like. It's so tiny they couldn't, look at it through a microscope or anything. So they had to mathematically calculate and design it and see if this worked or that worked or whatever. So Niels Bohr went to Asia for a few years, and he studied Taoism and Buddhism and all kinds of religions. And it was there, on studying their religions, that he suddenly understood the theoretical physics of the atom. And he said, depending from where you are relative to what you're looking at is, that is what it looks like. So if you're in another place that looks completely different, you're looking at the back side, the front side, the top, the bottom. It looks different. And that became Niels Bohr's theory of relativity. And what people don't realize is that many, many priests in Asia are also scientists. You cannot separate science from relativity and spirituality. And they know that.
Yeah.
Now, Niels Bohr went back to Denmark, and the King of Denmark knighted him for that discovery. And so then he had to design his own coat of arms, his own shield. And what do you think he put on his coat of arms?
I don't know.
The yin and the yang.
Oh, yeah, of course.
The yin and the yang is on Niels Bohr's coat of arms. It's so funny.
Yeah.
Because that is the dynamic that is perpetual motion. It's what the world turns on.
Yeah.
Energy.
Yeah. It goes on and on. Yeah.
Yes.
There was something I'd like to say, but I forgot. It escaped me. Well, maybe we'll see. But yes, the oils and the plants. And one of the plants that's very important also, and they use that in India a lot to cleanse the temples, and that is sage.
Yes.
And you can do so many things with sage. I have my garden full of sage. And I dry it, and I'm like this little herb woman, herbs everywhere, drying and in pots and things. I love being busy with that.
Yes, I have that too.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I actually have a few flashbacks from previous lives when I was doing similar things. But those times it didn't work out well for me, because the Catholic Church put me on the fire. How you say that? On the.
You were a witch.
I was a witch, and I was a woman working with herbs. And both times I had this big mouth, like, don't listen to the mainstream whatever, but work with herbs and plants and do that.
Well, you see, it threatens the cash flow of many private interests. So that's actually why they outlawed cannabis. It's because it was competing with drug sales of harder drugs that they could make more money on.
Yeah. We have 1.5 minutes now. So 2 hours went woof like that.
It sure did.
Yeah.
Well, what I'd like to say is that the last story that I'll tell is from Dr. Weston Price's book, and it's about people in Switzerland living on their indigenous diet. Now, I wouldn't have thought that the Swiss, and I'm Swiss American, would be considered to be indigenous people, but they are. And he said that the Swiss were extremely healthy because in the summertime, when the snow was melted in the mountains, they would take their cattle and their sheep up to higher altitudes in the alpine zone, where the cattle and sheep would graze on the new fresh grass. And because it has a really short growing season like the Arctic, the new grass is very, very nutritious. It has to get the seeds or the bulbs out, and so that that plant species will survive. So they put lots of nutrition and really good nutrients into the bulbs and the seeds. So these cattle would come down, or they would carry the milk down and make cheese out of it. Now, this was raw milk. It was not sterilized or pasteurized. That kills the milk nutrition. Yeah. And it's not the calcium in the milk that's so valuable. It's the enzymes and the fats and other components that are destroyed by high heat when you pasteurize. And they had beautiful teeth, very full bridges for their jaws to hold the teeth in. And that milk and cheese was an extremely important part of their diet. And the reason milk products and cheese have a bad name now in Western regions, is because the milk products are full of radiation. And so the governments and the medical industry are concealing that by blaming cholesterol as the cause of increased cancer and other illnesses, that it's really the radiation in the milk products. So
that's a very good piece of news that you give us.
Yes.
Our time is up now.
Yes.
So, but that's very important. And the cholesterol story is baloney anyway.
It's baloney, and we can't live without cholesterol. Plants have it too.
Absolutely.
Thank you very, very much. I thought this was a really interesting program. And this is a book on essential oils. I can send you the cover, and you can put it on your website.
Okay. Thank you, Leuren.
Yes. And thank you, Biggie.
Yeah. Thank you, listeners and viewers, for this time in the Minority of One report of August 30, 2015. Bye-bye. Till next time.
If you really had to make a difference on a large scale with minimal resources, how would you go about it? Have you ever dared to dream of doing that which seems impossible? On a planet steeped with corruption and destruction, the question beckons, how do we change it? Media has a far-reaching impact on people and has been used to manipulate humanity into our current destructive patterns. In order to affect people into moving into constructive patterns of behavior, we need to construct a new paradigm of media. conscious intention of giving the amazing truth-seeking, solutions-orientated, alternative media a place to fully realize their true potential with a cutting-edge, high-tech professional media platform. In turn, some of the greatest freedom-seeking hearts and souls of our time have realized the true potential of what has been created and have come together to provide their insight and inspiration on CCN. Conscious Consumer Network has become a unique, interactive information and educational network which provides a free-to-view, live-stream, ultra-high-definition channel to the world and features 25 live shows a week and growing with the addition of multiple language broadcasts. CCN has features comparable with mainstream media, such as being able to pause and rewind broadcasts whilst being live-streamed. Catch up on missed or previous broadcasts, now available from the CCN high-definition downloads. You can now purchase a high-definition download of your favorite CCN show from ethymarket.com. Support free and independent media by becoming a monthly pledger. This can be done with a monthly pledge of €10, which will allow you unlimited access to CCN's high-definition downloads, which hosts a back catalogue of over 250 shows, which have been aired since the launch of CCN on the 1st of January 2015. In order to keep CCN on the air, public funding is needed. Please donate to CCN's Network Support Fund or become a monthly pledger. Help keep alternative media in the hands of the people. We thank you for supporting free and independent media.